Welcome to our Principles of Practice. We'd like to spend just a few minutes going over some practice guidelines that will help you as you move through the yoga practice. Yoga really is a practice of union. It's a process of coming into relationship with ourselves and our lives.
Yoga can enhance your health and well-being. An emerging body of evidence suggests that yoga may be able to relieve pain, lower blood pressure, improve sleep, to name a few benefits.
Although not all practices are suitable for all people, and for that reason, we've chosen to take an integrative medicine approach to this practice, in which we're taking clinical guidelines developed by the Western medical community into consideration with regards to the practices we've chosen.
For that reason, you won't see some postures that are very common in yoga practices, including standing forward bends and extreme twists. We've modified the practices on this DVD so that they will be safe and effective for older adults and people with health challenges.
To help you with your practice, we've developed what we call the ABCs of yoga. The A stands for awareness, and during your practice, it'll be helpful to not only be aware of what's happening in your physical body, but to also notice when the mind starts to drift off. That's perfectly normal, and when you do become aware that the mind has drifted, practice coming back to what's happening in the body and with the breath.
B is for breathing, and we'd like you to keep your breath flowing throughout the practice. If you find that you can't breathe easily, if you're holding your breath or if your breath becomes short or choppy, this may be a sign that you're straining, and it may be best to back off that pose until you can breathe slowly and easily. We also often suggest that you synchronize your movement with the breath. And if you find this difficult, don't worry about it. Just do your best, and over time you may be able to do that synchronization. We would also advise you to breathe in and out through your nose if at all possible. But if that's not available, it's okay to use your mouth.
C stands for comfort and stability. Only you know how a pose feels in your body. So if anything that we are asking you to do doesn't feel right, then please feel free to either do less or to not do it at all for now. It may be that as your practice progresses, that you're able to come back to different postures that are really quite challenging at first. It's also the case that for some of us, we're more stable with our shoes on. Although we encourage you to take your shoes off for your practice, if you're not steady, then please feel free to use your shoes.
We've developed a few more principles to guide your practice. Start where you are, not where you think you should be or where someone else is.
Emphasize a fluidity of movement. Try to avoid movements that are jerky or abrupt.
Celebrate what you can do. Enjoy your practice.
The last principle is to seek guidance from your healthcare provider, especially if you have any concerns or questions about any of the practices in this video.
Now we'd like to tell you how to set up for your practice. Many of the practices are done in a chair, and it's very important that you have a chair that's stable. Avoid using a chair on wheels. If you are in a wheelchair, be sure to lock the wheels. Not every chair fits every person, so if you find that when you're sitting in your chair, your feet don't reach the floor, use a blanket or a rolled towel to bring the floor to you. You might also enjoy having a cushion behind your back for support, since we might be in the chair for a while and you want to ensure your comfort. Make sure that your chair is not on a slippery surface. A carpet is a good choice. If you are on a wood floor or linoleum, use a yoga mat under your chair to provide that important stability. Now we'll talk about how to safely get down and up from the floor. Many people find it helpful to have a chair available to make their way down to the floor. Please turn towards your chair, bend at the knees, and use the hip hinge, holding onto the chair for support. Come down onto one knee and then the other. Use whichever knee is more comfortable. Come to a hands and knees position. And then lower your body down carefully to the floor. When you're on the floor, if you'd like to roll over onto your back, extend one arm forward, place the other palm by your ribs, and use that palm to press into the floor, rolling your body over in an integrated unit. From there, you may need to scoot yourself back onto the mat. When you're on the mat, it might be more comfortable for, say, the relaxation practice, to place a rolled towel under your knees. If you find when you lay back, your chin is poking up, it might be useful to place a rolled towel or blanket or a folded blanket under the back of your head, being sure to maintain the natural curve in your neck so that your chin and your forehead are in alignment. When you're ready to roll from your back to your front, extend one arm up alongside the head, bend the opposite knee, press that foot into the floor, and use that action to roll yourself over as an integrated unit onto your tummy. And then when it's time to come to standing, come back to a hands and knees position, make your way back to your chair, place your hands firmly on the seat of the chair, and step up with one foot, then the other, using the hip hinge, and using the strength of the legs to come back to standing. We'd like to talk about safe movement for people with osteoporosis. Osteoporosis is a condition of impaired bone strength that results in skeletal fragility and increased fracture risk. Other medical conditions can also result in impaired bone, including some cancers and chemotherapies, as well as steroid use. Since compromised bone strength is such a common concern in this community, our practices are all informed by the guidelines set forth by the National Osteoporosis Foundation. These include avoid bending forward from the waist and avoid twisting to the point of strain.
First, let's look at forward folds. Many of us, when we fold forward, are actually folding forward from our waist rather than from our hips. In fact, in grade school, when we're asked to put our hands on our hips, many of us learned to put our hands actually on our waist. When we fold forward from our waist, what happens is that we begin to curve the spine. And it's this kind of curving through the spine that can cause an increased risk for fracture in the vertebra. So instead, what we want to do is we want to be able to fold from our hips. So it might be helpful for just a moment if you place your hands on your waist and feel where that is. And then place your hands on your hips, that place where your leg bones come up into the base of the pelvis. This is where we'll want our hinging to occur. When we're folding forward from the hips, it's really helpful to also bend the knees and to stick the bottom way back behind us so that we're able to maintain a nice long spine as we do so. Now let's consider rotation. Being able to rotate the spine is a really important skill that we need to maintain throughout our life. However, if we rotate our spine to the point of strain or to what we might call end range, then there is the possibility that this would also increase the risk for fracture in the vertebra. So when we're doing rotations through this practice, what you'll see is that we're going to be coming more to a mid-range, okay? Not to where we're really having to effort or to work at the twist, but a nice easy point where we're getting the mobility, but we're not really having to struggle with the motion. We'd like to say a few words about the models in this video. We selected real people in their 60s to early 80s, some of whom have never done the yoga practice before. We did this to represent a broad range of ability as well as limitation. Each of the practices feature 2 models offering different versions of the movements. Please follow the model that best fits where your body is today. As you progress in your practice, you may be able to follow a different model as you develop your balance, your strength, and your confidence.